time every 2 years.
Yeah.
Get the cameras right.
That's it. That's it. I want the.
Oh, okay, thanks for letting me
Action.
know. We'll make,
Not sure
we'll
which
wait
side.
for her. That's fine.
Yeah.
Dave just said Stacy's having a Zoom update situation, so she might be a minute or two late, and I figured we can start, but we'll wait for her before we do any business.
Sure. All right. So I will gavel us in 7 o'clock, and I just to let everyone know I'm doing this because we don't have a chair yet, and congratulations to everybody who has been elected and re-elected, and we will get to that's an important part of our business tonight. But I'll have us start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all join me, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So thank you for that. And Dylan, have our board members joined online, or are they still?
Not yet.
Okay.
We have Stacy.
That's it. Okay, Sarah?
She says she's coming.
Okay.
We'll just give her a second.
Good, there she is. Perfect.
A little bit of holiday cheer on the plants.
All right.
Yeah, Santa Claus ball last night, or Saturday night.
On the snowball.
That's right.
If my cats wouldn't eat them, I totally would.
Stacy's in.
Stacy's in. Sarah's joining.
Actually, want that kill cats?
Yeah, that's why I can't have them. I did.
That's why I like this.
Who's here? Oh, good.
Are we able to see the members that are on Zoom? You should be.
Yep, they're coming
Oh,
up.
they
should be
will
coming
come
up.
up.
Hi, Sarah.
Only if they want to be seen.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Stacy as well.
Stacy's here.
Oh, good.
Just not on camera. You have me.
Sarah, can you just say hi? I want to make sure you can hear us. So Sarah and Stacy, can you guys both hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So our first order of business tonight is the election of officers. What we're going to do is, because two of our members are on Zoom, is Tricia emailed you both your ballots. So after we entertain nominations, after you complete your ballots, you'll email them to me and Tricia, and we'll count them. We do need these as part of the written record. And then everybody else, you should have ballots already there in front of you. Our first order of business will be to elect a chair. Once we elect the chair, I then can turn the gavel over to the chair, and then the chair will lead us in the process of electing a secretary. So at this time, I would be happy to entertain any nominations for board chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Oral Steinhauser as board chair. Second that.
Second. Moved and seconded. I don't think we need to have discussion about that unless there are any other nominations.
Well, you have to call for other nominations.
Okay. So that's been made, motion and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so hearing none, I will ask you to complete your ballots and return them to me. And Stacy and Sarah, if you would email them to me and to Tricia.
You just have to close them.
Oh, okay. Just by voice close. All right, nominations are closed, then we'll vote on those. So if you please complete your ballots and have them turned to you.
I think you have to ask for a motion to close the
All
nominations.
right. New at this. This is why I
No,
don't
you're
have
doing
the gavel,
great.
right?
Hang in there.
Is there a motion to close
I
nominations?
move we close nominations.
Is there a second? Okay, do we need to vote on that?
Yeah.
All right. All in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for Robert's Rules of Order and the parliamentarians that are keeping me on task here. So why don't we vote at this point?
Charles, I hit send and just sent it to you and not Tricia. Do you need me to resend to Tricia?
Nope, I think I got it. I can forward it along to her.
Perfect.
Good. Thank you, Stacy and Sarah. Perfect. Thank you so much. So, congratulations, Laurel.
Thanks.
And I'm very happy to turn this over to you so you can do it right this time for our secretary.
Well, I don't promise to do it right, but I'll try my best. All right, so at this point, I would like to call nominations for board secretary.
I'd like to make a nomination to nominate Meg Scott for the position of secretary.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sarah and Kim. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, may I have a motion to close nominations?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Kim. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Meg. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We will proceed to a written vote.
I'll let you see.
Sorry, I didn't- All right, with 6 votes and 1 abstention, Meg, congratulations, and thanks for stepping up.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that counts as an abstention, does it?
It says present,
Right.
so how should I count that?
I'm not, you'd have to look into the rules, I think, because I'm not sure it would count as an abstention.
Okay, we can look into that for how it gets recorded. Okay. All right. Great, good to have taken care of that business. We can move on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thanks, Meg. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Kim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I think they're both of them. All right, thank you. Approval of the consent agenda. This evening, we are just approving the November 14th, 2023 Board of Education regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda this evening.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. All right, audience of citizens, do we have anyone with us in person or online who wishes to address the board at this point? All right. Thank you. Portland Public Schools Spotlight. This evening we are welcoming the Portland Middle School team to talk about their NGSS science unit.
Ms. Hershon?
Good evening, everyone. Super excited. Great work. Been incredibly excited to be here this evening to talk about what is one of my favorite classes to walk into every day, which is the science classrooms in middle school. Over the past 4 years, I've really gotten to see our science program continue to grow and change as we've adjusted with next generation science standards. And over the past 2 years, really, with Mr. Arkowski coming on board, the development of a really fantastic collaboration. This year, well, we've always struggled as a middle school, and we want to engage with professional learning community, something I know that Brian Wallstrom brought and talked with you all last year about. That collaboration at the middle school level is really difficult because it's a school of singletons. You know, we have one 7th grade science teacher, one 7th grade math teacher, and their partners are an 8th grade science teacher, an 8th grade math teacher. And it doesn't give you that ability to collaborate on the same content together. But what's really nice about the next generation science standards is that they are grades 6 through 8 standards. So these two ladies here are incredible collaborators and great consultants for one another and have been. And they thought this year they wanted to really step that up and take advantage of those science standards so they could collaborate together on the same content. And show how doing something in 7th grade versus 8th grade it's not going to negate someone's experience, it's going to enrich it. So I'm going to let them talk a little bit about what they have done to create one of the most exciting places to be in this district, which would be those science classrooms.
I'll speak just a little bit first about, as the science coordinator for the K-12, to help you understand that each of the grades have a set of expectations that they're supposed to complete, a set of skills and things like that. And like Mr. Hershon said, 6 through 8 is a band. And so it does not matter where this content is introduced, it's as long as it's in through 6 through 8. As a science team, we have made sure that every performance expectation, every skill, every piece is introduced somewhere along, anywhere where it needs to be, K through 12. And so having the bands has enabled us to be able to say, hey, well, I want to try this differently. Well, we can do this, and we've come up with this great collaboration. But if you want to go ahead and start.
Absolutely. So this, thank you so much for having us, by the way, this is exciting. So how this collaboration really started is that when I came on board, Sue was teaching the physical sciences, which is chemistry and physics, and I was focused mostly on biology. If you look at the NGSS programming, it's really a mixture of everything. So if you don't know bits and pieces of all these different things, you can't really progress the way that you should be progressing in your learning, and you don't get as much from it. So we came up with the strategy of shifting some of the chemistry to the 7th grade so they can get that intro and then talk about body systems and all those exciting things that happen, and gross things that happen with our bodies. And then that way they can transition to 8th grade and talk about some of the more complex things when they've had that background knowledge, and so we're transitioning some of our heredity towards the 8th grade. So that's how the collaboration started. What you're seeing on the board is what we came up with. So NGSS is structured as a storyline. We start off with like an idea, and then we investigate this, and we look at the science behind it. So what you're seeing here is, like, they call it the 3 dimensions. So you have these disciplinary core ideas and these cross-cutting concepts and soft skills and more learning skills and the scientific concepts all mixed in together. And that's what you're looking at here. So this is the basis of how we plan our unit. What we did, Sue and I, was also work during the summer on building a curriculum. We worked with Eric Martin on this as well. And we took pieces of that and just built it together into this unit. And we based all of this on a curriculum called Open SciEd, which is a great resource. It's a state-approved curriculum, by the way. So we looked through this and hashed out the things that were usable for us and put in our little flair into it as well. So this helped us really collaborate and during our PLC really come together and see where are the caveats in this and how can we help our students grow.
Next slide.
Oh, that's me still. My bad. All right. So our next generation science starts with a lot of inquiry. We do this a lot with students. We teach them that it's okay to ask these questions. It's okay to not have the answers, actually. And it's the way that we can learn from each other and learn with each other is asking all of these questions about something simple that we're seeing that we don't stop to think about. Sue's going to talk a bit more about this, but we're investigating a bath bomb, really. And these are some of the questions that came up, like, where does the fizz come from? What is the gas that comes out? Why does it spin? Because we saw that it spins in the water. And all these types of things that naturally lead into the learning that we want them to do, but sneakily they come up with the questions themselves. So it's a lot of inquiry.
So one ways you can call this is a driving question board. These are the questions that the students come up with on their own, and you use them to drive the unit. When we were, talking about this, we're going to have to end the unit after we finish everything, because we're going to have to put these bath bombs in orange juice, in milk, in soda, in hot water, in cold water, on ice cubes, because they've come up with all these great out-of-the-box questions that are not part of the regular program. We're going to have to feed that imagination and creativity. But what we would do as we continue back to this question board is as we work through, we'll go back to this and we'll check off something, or we'll circle something, like we've got to get back to this. And so we let the students realize that throughout the unit, their questions are being addressed and answered. All right, go ahead, next slide. So, phenomenon is the key thought to each of these storylines. In the physics unit that I teach, it's roller coasters. The kids design their own roller coaster over the course of a number of weeks on a piece of paper. And these kids are all laughing because they all did their own roller coasters. They realize that, oh, wait a minute, I go on this roller coaster and I won't make it through this roller coaster. So they figure out the physics through the roller coasters. In chemistry, we decided to use the bath bomb as an example. And it's wonderful, an example of it. And so what we've got here is a model that some of the kids have worked out. This is one that I drew on the smartboard as they are telling it. It's kind of like in the middle towards the end of the unit model. We've been modeling throughout. Our initial model, our first models, looked nothing like this. This is one that the students are able to answer many of our questions to figure out what are the parts that we can't see, what's going on in here. And they're able to figure out what each of the components in the bath bomb are doing, and hinting at the beginning of understanding of the law of conservation of mass. And these models are something that we're using throughout. And go ahead, next slide. A next-gen classroom is always filled with doing science. Some of my students on the right-hand side are experimenting and investigating with the particular components. They have citric acid, baking soda, oil, they've got cornstarch, Epsom salt. They're making combinations and permutations of these. They're putting them in water. They're realizing no matter how hard they stir, that cornstarch isn't going away. They find out it's not soluble. No matter what they do, and they put in the oils, always going to the top. They're figuring out, when they put the citric acid in the bake, oh my gosh, and it's overflowing. So they're beginning to realize where the fizz is coming from. And so that's like one of the early parts of the lesson is this, where's the fizz coming from? And then Mrs. Starkowski's class did some more.
So I struggled with this idea of how do we teach vocab? Because there's vocab that the kids need to know, and it's boring to just stand in front of a class and just learn words, and you don't really get that meaningful learning. So when I spoke with Mr. Hirschon about this, there was this good idea of coming up with how about if the kids can come up with their own ideas of what these things mean. So what I did in my class today is just tell them we're going to do a different type of modeling. Here are all sorts of things. So we had rocks, we had rubber bands, cups, you name it, whatever I could find in my lab, we took it out and we spread it around the classroom. And the task was, well, you need to explain the relationship between these 5 words with atoms, molecules, compounds, mixtures. How are you going to show that? You're allowed to use anything in the classroom. You can research, but don't ask me if it's right or wrong. Just try it.
Step beyond that. Not just
That's
don't ask
true.
if don't right or wrong.
I know. So I told them don't talk to me. And I said I'm not going to answer you either. I'm just going to go around and see what you're doing. And here are some phenomenal things that the kids came up with. The bottom one especially. So they just used trinkets and elastics and all sorts of stuff they could find, showing that if you add two atoms together, they make a molecule, and then you can shape this differently to make a compound. The top one is showing a heterogeneous and a homogeneous mixture in those cubes, and it's also showing a molecule made out of different atoms, and they just did this organically on their own. It was really fun to watch.
Words without
Using any words.
Okay, one more slide.
All right, and the last slide, since we couldn't bring any of our little kiddos in today, they did a flip grid for me showing like their current understanding of what this chemical reaction thing is. If you want to move it to about 1 minute 30, since we're running out of time, you can totally do that. You'll get this beautiful explanation of what they think is happening during a chemical reaction.
Now I'm going to tell you about the particles after the reaction. So, as you know, a chemical change had happened, and the fizz, or bubbles, scattered in the water and the bath bomb dissolved. A new substance was created, gas and liquid, and the gas filled the balloon during Arnot's experiment, which shows that the new substance of gas was being created by the reaction between the bath bomb particles and the water particles, and that's just really what happened after, and all the particles were finished like combining or mixing, and the reaction was finished.
So that's like their startup idea of like what does it mean to have a chemical reaction, and just coming up with those words themselves.
Any questions, any next-gen science questions, any instructional lessons? We love teaming together. We, are looking forward to bringing heredity into the 8th grade. The phenomenon for that, I'm actually going to look at the evolution of dog breeds, which is
Come
something
visit us
you
in our
know is.
classroom.
Great new wheelhouse.
It is really
Will
fun
never look
looking
the
at science
same.
classes now because it's not your chemistry class and we're talking about. This is the unit. This is the bath bomb unit. This is the roller coaster unit. The themes that drive these are so engaging. I mean, I think last year we had a unit where students got to pretend like they were on ER, and it was students or residents investigating different maladies. There was a biology-based unit and learning the different systems, but the whole hook was, what's wrong with this kid? All right, we're going to now do a thing of residency rounds at the end where we actually explain our patients. We're going to get that real-world application.
That's fun. You mentioned that the NGSS science standards are 6th through 8th. Have you had the opportunity to collaborate with the 6th grade science teachers?
We don't collaborate with like shared units per se, but we've collaborated, continually. In the few years ago, the 6th grade teacher, a 7th grade teacher, and myself, we also participated in something called NESLI at Central, which was the Next Generation Earth Science Literacy Unit. So we learned a lot of literacy to be able to put through our science units. So at the very, when NGSS was in its first couple of years, I was able to work really closely with each of those bands and come up with some earth science-based units using the literacy skills. And so they've been really helpful understanding, all right, the 6th grade is going to be able to introduce these type of literacy things, like maybe called the frame model. And so I can pick it up, remember when you did this model in 6th grade?
Nice.
So while the content of a science particular topic in 6th grade might be earth science, like weather and climate, but we can pull out a literacy standard, or we can pull out an engineering practice, where we're using all the same common language, we're using the same verbs and asking them to do the same things. While they may have a totally different story, they're totally able to tell about it because they can use the same vocabulary. So
And they know how to do a claim, they know all of these things, all those skills that they really need to do those investigations. And we do collaborate on curriculum writing as well.
There's curriculum lists, of course, the whole K through 12 is together in terms of that science work. We always, any chance to do more collaboration, we latch on.
And hopefully in the future, 3 through 5 is also a grade band. So it is something that if something realizes, wow, this, unit that fifth grade has been doing all along, this is now going to fit perfectly. We've got a new language arts story that might tie into it.
Yeah.
We can switch things around.
Right. There are these natural collaboration points through how the curriculum.
5, 8, and 11 are your key things where you need to make sure you have this chunk done by that time. But it doesn't matter really where you do it. It's more of a spiral unit, which is wonderful. 6, 8 in particular.
So we're really excited to investigate that benefit more going forward. What other units can this happen with? And as a middle school, can this apply in other subject areas? What are, math is very linear, every year tested, but not all of our subjects are like that. Where can we explore and benefit from that collaboration where we really don't have those natural collaborators right now, where we can create it through that cycling process of common units, different grades.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Thank you so much. All right. We have our student representatives here with us this evening, and we're excited for your reports.
So this past weekend, the Portland High School Student Senate held their annual semi-formal dance, the Snowball, for students grades 9 through 12. Senate and some volunteer students helped decorate the cafeteria and turn it into a winter-themed dance. Approximately 190 people attended, and a large quantity of toys were collected for the fundraiser that was being held simultaneously. These toys will be donated to the Ruth Kelly at Portland Food Bank. The Triumph Honor Society indication was held at the Fall Music Concert last week. The concert was very successful, and both the chorus and band did an amazing job. Congratulations to the new inductees.
This Friday, National Honor Society is sponsoring a Pajama Day as part of the statewide Pajama Day in support of Connecticut Children's Medical Center. Students who donate $1 or more are invited to wear their pajamas to school. NHS will match any donations that are made. And regarding sports, the Cromwell Portland football team will play in the state finals against Bloomfield on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. A fan bus will be provided for any students who wish to attend. Additionally, all winter sports are in full swing and all athletes are excited to start the winter season. Lastly, the class of 2026 is hosting a Portland night on January 13th at the Wolfpack game at the XL Center, so we hope to see you there.
Wonderful. Any questions for our student representatives? Thank you both. Okay, communications and updates. I think really quickly before I hand it over to you, I just wanted to acknowledge that the Board of Selectmen have appointed John Dillon as our new Board of Selectmen liaison. And so John, thanks for being here. We're happy to have you.
I'm excited to be here. There's a lot going on, and hopefully a lot happening, so I'm here to help.
Excellent, thanks. Charles, Superintendent's report.
So Tricia and I included in your packet some interesting communications. We have some big shoes to fill. So first, you'll find in your packet a notice of retirement from Greg Archer. Those who know Greg has been a longtime employee of the district as our carpenter, and his last day will be at the end of December here. So we look forward to celebrating with him, and more to come on that. But certainly, congratulations to Greg. Also received notification from 2 middle school teachers. This is Anne-Marie Zarecko, art teacher, and Catherine Kelly, a language arts teacher, that their intention is to retire at the end of the year. I got up to give them a hug and say congratulations. They will be missed. They're wonderful educators. They're going to leave a huge vacuum in the middle school. I know Chuck is going to miss them an awful lot. I see Sue here nodding her head along. Great people. They've reached that point in their career where they deserve a long, healthy, and enjoyable retirement. So again, they're going to be with us for the rest of the year. I do look forward to recognizing them and celebrating them with them as we cruise into the spring. Also, April Martinez, paraprofessional at Valley View, she too notified us that she intends to retire at the end of the school year. Also did receive a notification from Kayla Bardiet. She's a paraprofessional in the district. You know, remember, you authorized some time for her to pursue student teaching. She's finished that, and now she's going to be moving on as that part of her career. She's going to be missed. So people all leaving for the right reasons, for sure, and more to come as we celebrate those careers, and we wish all of those folks well as they move on with their lives. All of those things are going to have implications and considerations for the budget, which you know is coming up in January. We do ask people to notify us in December of their intentions to retire, because it does help us plan for next year in terms of staffing and positions that we're going to want to include as placeholders. So much more to come on that, but for now we'll reflect on their service and experience here in Portland, and look forward to celebrating as we cruise into the spring. Secondly, I did include the most recent enrollment update. Again, very stable. You know, as I look at these enrollments reports, I see them very much match up with what our demographic study pointed out. So we're pretty stable. We're up about 3 students from last year. You see some slight, 3 to 5 students up or downs, but otherwise the enrollment is pretty stable. So let me stop there and see if there are any reflections or comments either on the retirements or resignations that we received, or on the enrollment report.
I have just a question on is it Kayla?
Kayla, yeah.
It looks like there was no notice given. Is that accurate? It says just effective immediately. Usually there would be a notice period, isn't there?
She wasn't here.
She was on leave. She was
already on leave.
She was doing.
I see.
We gave her some time to do her student teaching. She requested a leave of absence.
Okay.
She's finished that, earned her certification, and
right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of other things I just want to give you some input on. It's been a very busy time of year, very productive, an exciting time of year. So since our last board meeting, I've had some really cool experiences that I just thought I would share with you and reflect on a little bit. So November 15th, which was the day after our last board meeting, I attended the Teacher of the Year ceremony with Sam Tucker. That was awesome. Very, very inspiring. I'm so glad that we're back into the game of identifying Teacher of the Year. Sam was there with his family. It was wonderful in every way. I can't say enough about how rewarding it was for him, for me, and for him to represent Portland the way he did. It was terrific. I'm really glad that we're doing that again. And again, that's coming right up. I see Eric back there. He's going to have to get that committee together as we begin the process of selecting a Teacher of the Year for next year. But the ceremony at the Bushnell was absolutely fabulous in every possible way.
Charles, do you have a sense of how many districts or how many communities participate in the Teacher of the Year process?
I can get you that. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So it was definitely well more than the majority of districts.
Yeah.
But why don't Tricia will remind me. I'll get you the
I can find out
the
from
program too.
The person who manages the program, because I do the evaluation of the applications.
Oh, for
I
that
had
state
Sam.
Teacher of the Year.
I did. for
Oh,
state
did you have to
12.
recuse yourself when he came in?
I did. I had to pass his application on to others, but the committee that evaluates all the applications that come in was probably 18 people, and we all had at least 15
Right.
applications. So
That's a good
you can
number.
imagine the number,
Yeah.
and then you whittle it down.
Well, you picked a winner. Her remarks were spot on, pitch perfect. It was wonderful in every way.
That's so great.
That was actually the first time in my career I've gone through that. So
Really?
yeah, I
Oh,
was blown away.
Such a
It was really-
celebration.
Such a great.
And she was obviously picked by a lot of people for the honor, but everybody that came before that committee, we met up at the state legislature and we spent 2 days doing it, and there wasn't one better than the other. Honestly, the quality of teachers in this state are impeccable. Really, just
No doubt.
incredible.
So 2 days after the Teacher of the Year ceremony, I got to join Meg, Laurel, and Sarah at the CABE convention. It was really neat. Did you want to talk about what we got at that? I know that
Yes.
it was there. Very exciting.
This was really exciting that Portland was acknowledged amongst a handful of other districts for receiving the CABE Board Leadership Award, acknowledging our board's effective leadership practices and the fact that we collaborate well and are a good team with our superintendent and our administrators. So that was really nice.
Yeah, it was a feather in our
Yeah,
cap.
so congratulations.
Congratulations,
To the
Board of
board.
Ed, right?
Yeah.
And I did include a press release and a picture of us with the Commissioner of Education receiving that award, so hopefully it'll potentially be in the River East or upcoming
And there was a nice
Week.
plaque that we
There
got,
is a
too.
lovely
There was a
plaque. And it will be
Yes.
at the Board of Ed office, and if we apply in future years, which I would hope that we would be interested in it, there's lots of little spots for us to update each year. So that was
Absolutely.
lovely.
Well, congratulations, you all deserve that, you're very committed and remarkable group of people, so congratulations, that was, and overall, the conference was terrific. I thought the speakers were great, the student speakers were particularly great.
Phenomenal.
And I attended one of the most terrifying, if not fascinating, presentations on AI and what we all have in store for that. We better gear up and get ready because that train is coming, if it's not already here in certain ways. But what some really interesting workshops, and I'm glad we got to do that, and I look forward to that in future years too.
Yeah, well, the more that come, the more information we can get because everybody will go off to different workshops. So I think that's an effective way to get information and do professional development.
Well done. So November 28th, the leadership team and Eric and I, we sat in on a presentation with a gentleman named Kim Marshall, right? And Eric's going to talk to you a little bit in his report tonight about where we are in the process of designing new teacher, administrator, certified, non-certified evaluation plans. One of the important considerations we have to make is what standards we're going to use to hold ourselves accountable. Right? Currently, we're using the Common Core of Teaching and the Common Core of Leadership. Those are the Connecticut instruments. I'm glad we got to hear from Kim Marshall, and he presented us his standards and the approach he uses, which focuses far heavier on mini observations, a lot more observations for shorter amounts of time than we do now. But I was inspired by it. I got some good feedback from the administrators, and tune into that part of Eric's presentation tonight when he updates us on where we are and where PDEC is with the teacher evaluation process. Eric is doing remarkable work, as you would expect, leading that process, and I'm positive that we're going to come out with a really good plan that I'm excited to share with you and is going to guide our improvement of teaching and learning for many years to come. So that was a great session, and whether we choose Marshall or not, it got us talking about standards and what we're looking for in terms of student learning outcomes and those things that teachers do to influence those outcomes. That was a great discussion, very inspiring. Last week, I attended on the 29th the Portland High School winter concert, and then on the next night, the 30th, the Portland Middle School concert. Both were so outstanding. If you didn't have the chance to go, they were wonderful. Now, Portland High School concert was great. Portland Middle School concert was amazing. I am blown away by how many students at that middle school we have engaged in chorus and band. In terms of a feeder program, we're killing it, right? I mean, we have to recognize that our music program, more than any other program, was dramatically affected by COVID. It suffered because of that. But let me tell you, we are back, right? So congratulations to all of our music teachers, to Kate and to Chuck and to everybody who's brought that program back to life. The quality of the music was outstanding, and how many students we have involved in that program now is growing and right back to pre-COVID levels. And I will tell you, the house was packed. Like you couldn't do a combined high school, middle school. It was standing room only.
I barely a seat to be seen.
It was packed. It was
Packed house.
wonderful in every way. The level of participation, the enthusiasm from the parents that were there, it was just awesome. So thank you to everybody for putting that together. It was terrific. You heard about our football team. So Rensselaer Field, Saturday, 10:30, if you're looking for something cool to do. It was a cold and miserable Sunday, but they got it done. So we may have another state championship here. Let's wish them luck. It would be awesome. I'll be there. My son and I are going. I'm very much excited. It was cold and rainy on last Sunday, so let's hope for the sun. And
Is it still at Rensselaer?
Rensselaer Field, yep.
All right.
10:30 on Saturday.
Great.
Then the last thing I just want to mention about what's happened is Tricia and I attended a training today and yesterday called the Breakthrough Coach. And it's something that executives attend with their administrative assistants. Last year, as you know, we had some new secretaries and actually some new principals. And they went last year. I didn't go with them because, as you know, I was turning over my administrative assistant. And Tricia and I attended it. I got a lot out of it. I see Tricia nodding. It was really interesting, some of the strategies and skills that they talked about how essentially Trisha's going to start managing me, right? Helping keep me organized so that I can spend less time doing technical aspects of the job and more time out there in the classrooms where I think I would have the greatest influence. Now, that said, I have to tell everybody, Trisha's going to start keeping my calendar, and she will be in my email every day. So it's important that as we transition to this model, you know that, right? So if you email me, you can expect you're going to be emailing Trisha. She's going to become my brain, right? And start managing me in those ways. She won't have access to my cell phone, so if you ever have something you want to share with me in some way, please communicate with me by text or give me a call. But trust that if you email me as part of our daily check-in meeting, Trisha is going to be triaging that. So I'm raising her up, but I also need, as I do that and we transition into that model, you have to know that emails that you send to me, be aware they're all subject to freedom of information anyway, unless they're subject to bargaining. But Trisha is going to be helping me manage what is an awful lot of email that sucks a lot of my time and energy away, so that I can put my time and energy to those things. I know Chuck is using that model with his secretary, as are all of our our administrators at this time. I popped into Chuck after this, and he says that it too, he hasn't quite gotten there. It takes time, but
It's a very hard thing to give up that amount of control to go. It is.
Yeah.
But it's the
amount
minutia.
that it frees you up to do the work of being in classrooms, of doing the work. It just frees you up so much more to do that work.
Right, and it reminds all of us that our greatest influence on the organization is not in answering emails or doing the technical aspects of the job. It's being out there, observing, coaching, giving feedback, and just your presence alone, keeps things running smoothly. So my goal is, as I start to turn over some of the more technical aspects of the job to Trisha, I'm going to have many more days that I'm available to watch these guys learn, which is the part of the job I think all of us like the most.
He
So.
also used to get the coach on the sidelines of the field during the game, as opposed to in his office.
Right, that's right, exactly.
Good
Eric is
analogy.
shaking his head no. You don't have an assistant right now.
It's coming, right? Stay
It's
tuned.
coming.
Yeah,
You-
we're working towards that. We're working towards
This is the same training that Ryan and Liz were describing at our last meeting, correct?
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's wonderful.
And it matches perfectly up with Marshall's model, so the worlds are kind of aligned.
Okay.
Two upcoming things I just want to make sure is on your radar. I promise we're going to try to keep this meeting as succinct as possible because we have some long ones coming up. So just be aware. I'm very much looking forward to our December 20th retreat. That's going to be here at the high school. We're going to have Chartwell's cater it for us, so we'll provide dinner for it. The retreat is going to be from 4 to 7 here in the conference room. The first part of that retreat, Eric is going to join us, and we're going to review our next generation accountability results. You heard a little bit about them when Ryan talked about the School of Distinction and how we've, changed, flipped the paradigm, flipped the script on that. But we'll talk about the other schools too. That's the first part of our conversation. The second part of our conversation is going to be with our friends from Friar. Those architects are going to, Mike Serrano and Bryce are going to be here to talk us through the ed specs plans that I shared with you. And as you know, I did what I really didn't want to do, which is wrote many different ed specs plans, but they'll help us unpack that, understand what those ed specs plans are, answer your questions about them, and sort of articulate what it might look like, costs, timeline, otherwise academic space design in any one of those scenarios. Understanding that we're going to choose one at some point, but right now we're not in a place until the survey is done, until the municipal studies committee is done, but we're getting hopefully to a point we need to if we want to hit that June 30th, which is our first deadline when we'd have to have grant applications in and that. So this is a good step in the process. I think we're still moving forward on the timeline that we're hoping to achieve, but it's going to be a really important opportunity to talk about the ed specs plans and pick the brains of the experts in the room who've done this with many other districts. I'm sure you'll have many questions. So hopefully that's on everyone's calendar. That will be Wednesday, December 20th from 4 to 7.
Charles, I have 3 o'clock in my calendar.
I did. I
Is
said
that-
3. Did I say 4?
Yeah.
My bad.
It's 3?
Three.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
3 days. Yep.
3. Awesome, thank you.
And then just one other note, so January 2nd, which is tough, it's right the day we come back from break here, the big item on that agenda, I know you'll be interested in, that's when you'll be getting your first look at the superintendent's budget, right? Stephanie and I are hoping we're going to work this week and next week, put that together with you, share it with you. I won't be presenting it, I would just like to provide it with you, for you, so you'll get the binders on the 2nd. We then have our budget workshops scheduled for the 9th and the 11th, the following Tuesday, and if necessary, the Thursday. So we'll give you the binders on the 2nd, and then we'll be prepared to present them, ask for your input, and then either on the 11th or the next board meeting, hopefully we'll be able to take action on that and turn that budget from a superintendent's proposed budget into a Board of Ed approved budget. So a lot coming up over the coming days. Any questions?
All right. No? All right, thank you, Charles. All right, Assistant to the Superintendent for Business and Financial Affairs, Stephanie. Thank you.
Doom and gloom this week.
All right.
It's the opposite. So I actually was able to do through November 30th, so 5 months of the year have gone by, which total available 58.33%, just to keep looking at the totals, figures at the end. Projections, I know last time I was 350 in deficit, and I kid you not, the next day when Charles and I met, literally the next day, we had a mid-year retirement, an outplacement move out of district, and myself and Olivia, Dawn's assistant, worked on the Hartford billing. So not being creative, there's just more need. There's more need from the students that come here from Hartford. So Olivia went through all the IEPs to make sure we're accounting for all the services that all the students get and that we can bill for them. And so with adding that up, in totality, and again, I'm not putting a hard number on that until I get an actual purchase order from them saying that yes, we will pay what you're billing, what you're billing us, but I'm pretty confident that they will. So that $350,000 is now around probably 35 to 40. So, and it's only December, so I'm hoping still with the freeze, which we may let up a little bit on, and other changes in staffing, maternity leaves, and all that other stuff, that we hopefully, again, it could change next week. You can come into the office tomorrow and get something else. So,
When you say 35 to 40, you mean 35 to 40,000 or 300?
no, $40,000.
$40,000
Yeah,
flat.
give or take. So it went from 350.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah.
But I mean, just to
That's a
go
huge
from
difference.
that in a
It's
matter
a
of a
huge
day.
difference.
24 hours later.
Yeah.
We sat at the table and we said, okay, that was good. But again, tomorrow we can turn around and it could be the reverse. But we'll take it as a win for now. And I'm just going to keep watching all the accounts daily as I do, and hope that we can end the year on a good note. And the other stuff is on the
Right,
transfer
that's
to the
new
next.
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions on this current spending report.
Any questions for Stephanie at this point? Sarah or Stacy? I want to make sure I don't lose you. Do you have any questions?
No, all set.
Okay. That's certainly the kind of update we love to get. Thank you. All right. Eric, we have our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology with a report for us.
Hi everyone, I'm going to try to stand back. I was sitting back because I got a touch of a throat tickle, so you're wondering why I was in the back. Good evening. So I'm going to go just quickly off script a little bit to commend our science teachers for the collaboration that they were doing. Behind us is this beautiful banner. You'll see right in the middle is inquiry, unity, skill, and collaboration. So they're modeling that as teachers. This whole idea of phenomenon-based instruction with NGSS, of all the standards that have come out, they're very complex standards. Leave it to scientists and engineers to develop what's probably the most complex set of standards. But at the heart of it is this idea of phenomenon-based instruction. So you show kids something that blows their mind, or they can't really make sense of a problem, and then you teach them to ask really good questions, right? And so I want to connect this to a practice that we've put in place this year called instructional leadership rounds. So every building, with the exception of the high school, they'll come up just after the new year for their instructional leadership rounds. The entire administrative team descends on a building. We give our faculty advance notice. And we visit classrooms. And prior to doing that, I meet with the principal and I interview them about instruction in their building. What's good? What have you been working on? What's been the use of professional learning time? And where do you feel instruction needs a push? And the hosting principal gives me all of their ideas. And then we effectively go and share those ideas with the administrative team prior to going out into classrooms. So going out into classrooms it's twofold. It's testing the administrator's assumptions or their ideas about their school. Are other members of our leadership team seeing things the way that the host principal is? And then if they're true, or whatever truth we discover to be based on our snapshot visits to these classrooms, what are the instructional leadership moves we feel the principal might make to push instruction forward in the building? And that's an important kind of distinction. It's not what do teachers need to do, right? Our teachers do a lot. They do enough, and I choose to believe that our teachers are really hardworking people that are doing the best they know how to do at the current time. So if we're going to increase their capacity, increase their skill, push instruction forward, increase the quality of instruction, it's dependent on instructional leaders to do that. How do we build our principals' ability to do that? Through collaboration, community, inquiry. We get together in a room, we hear about some assumptions, we go out and test those assumptions for visits, through a visit process, and then the team makes suggestions to the principal. Hey, here's where we think the building is, here's some things that are going well, here's where we think a push might happen, and here's some moves that we suggest you might make with your faculty to drive instruction forward. The beauty of that process is it's not just a bunch of visitors giving feedback to the host, and that's an intense process for the host principal and the host faculty. But principals are also, visiting principals are also thinking about what this means in terms of their own leadership. Are these realities present in their own buildings? And I can tell you, in our past 3 visits, which have been Gildersleeve, Brownstone, and the middle school, we've all kind of landed in the same place of that we need to promote what we call productive struggle more for kids. So give kids really challenging tasks, right? Really complex, age-appropriate, complex phenomena. And encourage them to ask questions, solve problems, think critically, and as teachers, getting out of the way. And it's hard for teachers to do because teachers have been trained on things like instructional modeling. Let me show you how to do it, right? And then what do kids do? They do exactly as the teacher does. There's not much room for innovative, creative thinking. There's not much room for problem solving. It's a lot of mimicking. Do as I do. Or gradual release of responsibility. I'm going to do it, and then you're going to do it in small groups, and then you're going to do it independently. What we're finding is that really still promotes this idea of copycatting the teacher. So I want to make a connection to what we find on standardized assessments, which are just one measure, right? But we kind of puzzle ourselves with how can our instruction in the classroom look so good, or how can our curriculum be so strong, and learning looks so great on a day-to-day basis, but when kids get in front of these tests, results go the other way, or they belie what we see on a day-to-day basis. And one of the things we're landing on is what's the difference with the test? The teacher is not there, right? The kid is faced with a complex problem. And so to draw it back to what our science teachers are doing, is you give the kid the problem. You don't let him sink. You don't let him get to the place of frustration. But you keep him in that sweet spot of productive struggle, and you teach him how to ask the right questions, that inquiry as the impetus for deep learning, right? And if you think about it, where does a problem-solving process begin? It begins with knowing how to ask the right questions. And so that manifests in instruction not by the teacher handing the students the set. Here's a phenomenon. Answer these questions, right? The teacher has kind of taken that active inquiry from the students. And again, not because they're bad people, but they've been conditioned to do that, ask really higher-order thinking questions. And we're trying for more transference now of developing within students, in the face of a complex problem, the ability to ask questions as the first real act of deep learning. And you see it present in a unit like our 2 excellent middle school science teachers have developed. And that's a push we're trying to bring to all classrooms. I want to shout them out, connected to some of the great instructional leadership work that we've been doing, and connected to what I hypothesize is some of our struggles with student achievement on standardized tests. Certainly not the answer. Let me pause there. Any questions about that? I know I was off script with my report.
I'm just curious, how long have the instructional leadership rounds been around as an idea? Is this sort of new, or is this been happening
it's
for
a
a while?
practice that I used in my previous district, but they were called instructional rounds, and they involved teams of teachers and administrators. And while we love that model, it's difficult because it requires sub-coverage and it's pulling teachers for instructional time, and it often manifests on what do teachers need to do differently. And so we looked at all of those factors and said, how can we use a rounds process to drive instructional improvement, to keep it at the level of instructional leadership? That was actually a practice that when I was completing my 093 superintendent certificate studies last year, I was mentoring under a superintendent, Howard Theory in Region 10, and he had modified that practice of instructional rounds to be these leadership rounds. I said, that's brilliant. It's a little less prohibitive in terms of what it takes to get it off the ground. And the conversations have been so high quality. Our principals want to talk about instructional leadership. They want to give and solicit suggestions from each other. They want to talk about the difficulty of driving instruction forward and start to see ways to do that. It's not a lot of effort. These rounds start at 8:30. We end them at 11:30. The past 2 rounds, I've had to kick people out of the room at noon and say, you got to go back to your buildings. It's not burning down, which probably is. But, people they don't want to leave the seats because the conversations are so engaging. And we've built it so that every school will go twice throughout this school year. So Valley View kicked us off in September. They'll start us up again in February, and then we'll hit each school in sequential order through the end of the year.
Cool.
So a really proud process that we're implementing here.
My favorite piece of learning growth for myself in the 4 years of this process. It's really fantastic.
It also has repercussions as I zoom ahead to our work with our PDEC committee and redesigning evaluation, or what we like to think of as growth and support plans, right? Evaluation is predicated on judgment. Growth and support is the idea that those are the expectations. We will grow people here. We will support people, right? That's undergirded by accountability to student learning. But we have an opportunity to more deeply connect instructional leadership to our administrators' roles in the district. They want it. What's the most important thing a principal can do? Keep people safe. What's the second most important thing a principal can do? Drive instruction forward. If we help our teachers be better at their craft of teaching, learning outcomes will benefit. It's a direct correlation, and that's really our principals. Our administrative team acts by proxy on student learning through our teachers, and through the instructional leadership moves that we make. So zooming ahead to PDEC committee, we kind of started at this 30,000-foot view because the new guidelines represent a shift in how we're being asked to consider evaluation models. And so we really had to take good time as a PDEC committee to wrap our heads around those design principles, which I linked in my report. There are some changes. Predominantly no more ratings, which we're trying to figure out what that means. We know that ratings were a broken system for motivating people. If you ever want to demotivate, slap a label on someone. It kind of flies in the face again of what we choose to believe, that we have really good people here who are working as hard as we've built them to work, or as effective as we've built them to work. So we take it upon ourselves that if someone is ineffective, our first response is to give them the support they need to become more effective, right? And that's a process that for some it will play out until the point where we've done all we can and maybe this isn't the right situation, but that has to go through a deliberate process of support. And we do that by tending to their growth and increasing their capacity. And obviously, always tied to student learning outcomes. But one of the shifts in the guidelines is not being so explicitly tied to student data, because that system, which has been in place since 2012, has proven across every major study to fail. It has not increased student achievement. So whereas some states went the way of merit-based pay, or in Connecticut we used IAGDs, growth measures for students, and if you didn't hit your growth measure, you ran the risk of quote-unquote failing your evaluation. It hasn't worked to increase student achievement. So what are ways that we can get teachers growing, building their ability, increasing their capacity with positive outcomes on student learning that aren't tied to data. And a couple things happened within that data piece. Standardized assessments were stripped out from usable measures for student learning. Charles explained this when he gave his narrative about where we've been in education. That kind of took the soul out of educator evaluation, yet we still required teachers to use data. And that's created some inequities. So where we have teachers who are operating in content areas where there still are local standardized assessments, their feet are held to that fire per se, whereas other teachers who are not in those content areas are not. And so we want everyone talking about student learning. We want everyone being able to demonstrate that the hard work that they're doing is having a positive impact on student learning, free of a sword of Damocles of student data hanging above their head as the only measure, right? It's an important measure. It shouldn't be the only measure of such a heavily weighted measure. And we want to increase for our educators their ability and their willingness to take risks, to try new things. Because if we're on a hamster wheel of status quo or flat student achievement, which not just Portland, we've seen that play out in Portland, but education has been, over the past 15 years, the only way to break that is to do something different. And we have to give our teachers the ability to take the risks, to try different things that have real impact on student learning. So as it affects the work of the PDEC, we started at kind of wrapping our head around the principles and guidelines at that 30,000 foot view, and a lot has happened since. So the state initially was not going to put out a model plan. That did not go down well with districts. So Portland is an example district that adopted the state model plan in 2014 because it's a massive undertaking. That state model plan took somewhere between 3 and 5 years to develop. Districts have been given a 12-month timeline to reimagine educator evaluation. In my opinion, that undercuts any room for innovation because it's a get it done. And we have an opportunity here that should be more than get it done. Regardless, the decision that the state made to not put out a model plan was met with fervor around the state. The state has now said they will be putting out 2 model plans sometime in the January-February timeframe. Connecticut Educator Association put out the first model plan. We began to look at that as a PDEC committee our last meeting. We're having Kate Field from CEA come in and answer our questions about that plan because we have a lot of questions. There's a lot of things in that plan that members of our PDEC committee may like, some things we may not like, and some things, quite frankly, that are unclear in the plan or that we're unsure about. Dr. Britton had intimated we attended a session by Kim Marshall, who has his own evaluation methodology that really piqued the interest of the administrators that attended that session. We're working to get Kim Marshall to visit with us in Portland. We're trying to iron out whether it'll be virtual or in person for a 2-hour presentation to our PDEC committee in January. Then we will review the state's model plans as soon as they're released as a PDEC committee. And the idea is this. We'll have to decide as a PDEC committee, is there any one plan that we love so much and that adheres to all the guidelines and recommendations that the state has put out that we say, we'll take that? Unlikely. What's more likely is that we'll say, we'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and some from over here, and we'll make something that works for us in Portland. That's a steep charge. So I had written in my report this month, for the board, the time frame is really, we want to have a draft plan to the board sometime in May or June. So it's coming, we're working steadily, but it's a very, very steep charge. It's an opportunity, but it's something we really want to get right and be very strategic in how we do that. Can I answer any questions about the work of the PDEC committee or our work towards the plan? Quick update on our K-3 literacy curriculum. So we are on pace to begin an 8-week pilot of Into Reading in all classrooms in grades K-3, beginning on January 22nd and lasting through March 22nd. That's 8 full weeks. I've drafted a communication to send home to families regarding that pilot, explaining what it is, why it is, and how this will not represent a disruption to their children's learning. This will be value add. That document is now with our elementary principals and Dr. Britton for their feedback, and the intent is to get that out prior to winter break. On November 7th, our K-3 teachers, including our special education teachers and interventionists, had an introduction to Into Reading. We had consultants from Houghton Mifflin Harcourt come, give us a broad level introduction to the program. Here's the different components, here's what day-to-day instruction feels like. We'll be following that up with a deeper dive on our January 17th PD. That'll give them enough impetus to get started. And then we've structured our 2-hour delays to be recursive points of contact throughout the pilot process, even after the pilot process through the end of the year. You'll hear with the budget presentation that we budgeted some funds in there to account for purchasing. We also recently secured a $47,000 right to read grant from the state of Connecticut that will help to offset costs. And that will really help to defray costs for year one implementation into reading. Just a quick note, the state just today released their compendium of waiver decisions for districts that sought waivers from the right to read legislation and permission to keep doing what they're doing. I would estimate that there were probably 90 to 110 waivers submitted. I don't have the exact number, Charles.
I'm looking at it right now.
There weren't many that were accepted without questions asked. And the ones that were accepted are a little bit eyebrow raising.
This one right here.
So, I liken it to, there's a lot of native pride around what we're doing for kids. I think we made a responsible decision in Portland. We saw what we had. We saw what we needed. We saw what our data looked like. The legislation was shocking. The time frame, just like PDEC, is shocking. The state loves crunch time frames. We didn't shake our angry fists at the sea. We made a decision that this is an opportunity for change, and we're preparing ourselves well to make that change.
Erin, can I ask a quick question? So Meg and I were in a meeting this morning with CABE with some other board members from across the state, several of whom districts had received notification today that their waivers were denied, and they were very unhappy about it, understandably. My question really was that someone else at the table was sharing that they'd attempted implementation of a new program through this past school year and had really struggled to get adequate professional development for their staff members because the top couple of companies who everybody are going to for their curriculum, they just weren't prepared to provide enough professional support. And so I guess my question to you is, are we anticipating any of that trouble
Absolutely
ourselves?
not. So we have our own dedicated HMH consultant. Our colleagues in East Hampton are also piloting the program. They have an entirely different consultant. So when I say dedicated to Portland, she is ours. She was wonderful on November 7th, and she will be with us for the duration. And I'm already advanced planning into next year's PD calendar what continued professional development will look like. Because if your strategy for doing something begins and ends with the word implementation, it's not a strategy, right? That gets you to start. We know that we need to go beyond start, and whatever our teachers learn, there's bound to be wrinkles and complications, and we want to be recursive in the professional learning that we deliver to them. So I am not concerned about that.
Great.
I'm also very thankful for my colleague in East Hampton, Mary Clark. She operates in this role in East Hampton. She has extensive experience developing and launching pilots and new programs. She has been a wonderful source of advice and has really helped me to hold a hard line with HMH. Not that it's been difficult or that I've had to play hardball, but really demanding what we want, when we want it. And every step of the way so far, they've been very responsive.
That's great to hear.
Are the materials available now to teachers? Are they able to look at the materials?
They are. So we actually on November 7th put physical teacher manuals in their hands. They have access to the digital platform, and we're even following up with our December. We have an upcoming 2-hour delay in December that they'll be given additional time to comb through that material and generate questions for the consultant.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then I'll end by saying, as far as, our curriculum is not a program. It will never be a program, right? If the program goes away, we want to ensure that we still have a curriculum. So to that end, we continue to build our administrators' capacity and our teachers' capacity through participation in the Science of Reading Masterclass, which is helping our administrators learn how do you lead the science of reading. When we go into classrooms, what should we be seeing? What's the type of feedback? And also to wrap our heads around what's a very complex and nuanced approach to reading. It's one that's scientifically vetted, but it's not a space that we've been operating in education for the better part of the past 30 years, where we started to make a shift to whole language. So that's been really important professional development for our administrative team. Our team of ReadCon teachers that are participating in that free professional development series from the state just finished the second of 4 modules yesterday. Very, very happy with the quality of professional learning, and it's helping them understand the why behind the what, as I had anticipated. That's my report for tonight. Any questions on anything I talked about, anything I didn't talk about?
Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to new business. Item A is a first reading of the 2024-25 school district calendar. Charles, did you want to walk us through this? Anything you wanted to point out?
Again, it's first read, so have you take a look at it. Tricia did a great job. She included the Learn Regional calendar. Take a look. That's in there. Also, last year's calendar is on the back of that regional calendar, so you can kind of see the difference. And then I really, again, love that we added all of the holidays that, we need to be aware of as we schedule and make considerations for our programming on the back of it. Otherwise, I think the feedback I got this year was people really appreciated not opening school with students on the Monday. Instead, that kind of lead in and then have students with the 2 short weeks to start was helpful. A lot of kids were building stamina. If I remember correctly, that students by the end of that first week of school are often falling asleep on the bus on the way home. So especially our peanuts at Valley View. So really good feedback on that. Otherwise, it's pretty consistent. I see the calendar kind of unfolding the same way next year that it did this year. I do think people appreciated that change and then the half day before winter break. And otherwise, it's pretty status quo, lines up with the regional calendar. Tricia did check. If you remember last year, we had that April vacation, a little bit of snafu because we were off the week from some of our surrounding districts.
Yeah.
And it's helpful that we stay lined up, particularly for our teachers who live in those towns and otherwise might have childcare responsibilities. So I think it's been reviewed by the leadership team. Sue took a look at it, got feedback from everybody, and happy to take input from you now. Otherwise, digest it, and we'll bring it back January 2nd.
I only had one quick question. So this past school year, we started school on the Wednesday rather than on the Monday. And it looks like in the next year's proposed calendar, it's pushed off a day. And instead of the teacher starting on Friday the 23rd, they'd be starting on Monday the 26th. Was that based on teacher feedback for that orientation period? Or just curious what the rationale was?
Yeah, I think that would just create a greater consistency. Without that break, get everybody that last weekend and then get going, right?
Yeah.
To hit the ground running.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we've alternated past years between Wednesdays and Thursdays, quite honestly.
Right.
So I think that's fine.
Are there any questions for Charles about the proposed calendar?
Otherwise, if you have
I think
questions.
one question I have, just looking at November, it seems like 3 out of the 4 weeks, there's at least 1 day off. And I just wondered, I can flip down to see if that's consistent with this year, but I just wonder if there's any way, it's not consistent with this year. I guess we had 2 weeks in November where we had at least 1 day off. But I just wonder if that's something that, if there's any way to mitigate that, or, we don't have a delayed opening in November, we have a day off. Just thinking about kind of continuity for families, that when you have like that much time off in 1 month, that could be challenging.
November's always been an election year or Veterans Day, and then we've always had, and December is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, November 5th is going to be an interesting day.
I hear you, Sarah. It is definitely, I think November can be really tricky for families between those 2 days off and the 2 half days before the Thanksgiving holiday. It is a little bit of a struggle, but because of because of Election Day and the way our schools are used, the way the schools are used as a, as a voting site, and
Right. The other thing that also, pretty much every district has the November 5th election day off.
Yeah.
So, particularly next year, I know that,
That's right.
for example, we're looking, if East Hampton or area districts go with the same reading program, it's helpful sometimes if we can have those days, to collaborate with them. And we wouldn't be able to change that. Obviously, the voting happens here in schools, and
yeah,
hopefully it's a very civil and peaceful experience for all of us. So.
yeah.
Fair enough. I just thought I'd note that since it's 1 month, that seems a little more day off intense than other months.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's, I think for a lot of families, it does make November really a little bit challenging. Those 2 half days are a challenge too. And I understand the importance of the time for teacher-parent conferences, so.
If it's any consolation, we have twice a year, 3 days in a row in Middletown where they have 3 half days. I have 3 half days for parent conferences this week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it happens again in March or April. And those
Big
are
ass.
killers. Those are killers for
That's hard.
a lot of reasons.
I don't know if there's any way around it, unfortunately. Are there any other?
Yeah, probably not.
Any other questions or thoughts about the calendar? No? I'll just say that I really appreciate that you all started including all of the holidays in the schedule. It's nice to be able to kind of see everything all together.
So if you have questions, email them or otherwise, we're not voting on it tonight.
Did you have something?
I was gonna say, we usually wait to set a graduation day, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Snow day.
All right. Well, we can take another look at it, and we will be prepared to take action on this probably at our first meeting in January.
January 2nd, yep.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Item B is fiscal year 2023 fourth quarter transfers. Stephanie, would you walk us through these, please?
So, we're coming up at the end of our audit, and this is one of the final steps that we have to do to make our ledger whole. Basically, we can't end the year with, if you look at when I give the authorized spending report, in that year-to-date column, if I do a sum by department, so each department can't end in a negative. We have to always make it whole. It was interesting this year because we spend every last penny of our budget. So when I'm sitting there trying to maneuver around the money to make it work, because we typically don't like to leave certain accounts zero. But I'm like, why am I 8 cents off? I could not figure out 8 cents. And then actually went and I talked to Tom on the town side. And I said, why am I 8 cents off? And he's like, there's 8 departments. You have to equal zero. It's just inevitable. So that's why you'll see more accounts used than typically in the object section on this page. I try to follow and mimic what's in our budget, like in the board book, the section. So like when you get the budget, you'll see the first one is salaries, then benefits, purchase services. So I try and follow the accounts that go within there, just to make it easier to follow. It's a lot more accounts than usual, so that's on the back page or the next page, but that's how we got to where we were to make it whole. And then I checked it many times, and it equals zero. When you add and subtract the main objects, they do equal zero. So it does have to take a vote for me to be able to post these transfers. And then this is the last piece that I have to give to the auditors for review for our general ledger.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Stephanie about this?
I got a question, just from my own knowledge. The second from the bottom, equipment repair rental, and we're going to use the building maintenance fund. Walk me through that.
So there was a lot of larger purchases last year, rooftop units. We typically try to use the LEA as much as we can to keep our building maintenance fund for an emergency, God forbid a boiler blew or something. Because of the state that we were in last year, we took some of the larger purchases in repairs and maintenance and purchased them with Fund 11. And that's what the building maintenance account is. So instead of doing any larger project or having the money on hand. But I mean, that's what it's there for. It's there, as long as we're replacing something and not repairing normal wear and tear of stuff, because we can't use the maintenance fund for that. So it has to be a larger purchase. So I believe there was A-plus pumps, something here at the high school. There was 2 rooftop units that we did.
Compressor.
The compressor at Valley View. So we moved those purchases out of the LEA into Fund 11. So that's why there was money left in that account.
I just want to make sure we're shorting something just to cover a...
No, the account is for replacing new items. And like I said, if we can keep that account as high as we can, it's great to have, but it's also there for us if we need it.
It would be bad if we didn't have that account.
Right.
And we'd had a pretty healthy balance in there over the past year, so drawing down from there, we're still looking okay in Fund 11, correct?
Yep, and those transfers that I usually do into it, and I haven't had to because I've done the max because we've always had, a healthy LEA. So it kind of helped us this year.
Yeah.
We didn't pay for it.
That's right.
So that's what that is.
Yeah, good question. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, then, yeah, please, go ahead, Meg. And I think I do need to ask you to read through
Okay.
that.
To recommend to the full board that the year of 2023 fourth quarter budget transfers between the major objects listed below, and the object is the 5-digit code at the end of the full account number. So salaries are being decreased by $147,659.79. The object is 11-011-12023. Benefits are being decreased by $115,410. The object is 21-001-29000. Purchase services are being increased by $135,378.66. The object is 30010-33030. Facility services are decreased by $128,725.00. The object is 44,003. Other services is increased by $273,924.88. The object is 56003. Books and supplies are being decreased by $11,261.75. The object is 61011-64045. The equipment is being decreased by $6,247.00. The object is 73,011-73015.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Kim.
And just to show, so when it says the 11011-12023, when you look at here, it'll be like line 1 through 12023 is that group of accounts.
Yeah.
And then the 2s is that group of accounts. So it's the grouping.
It is a grouping. Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? No? Okay, all right. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to old business, and we don't have any old business, so we're going to skip to committee reports. Curriculum. We had a great meeting with Eric right after our last board meeting, the day after our last board meeting in November, and Eric walked us through the next generation accountability results and the 12 standards that are measured, and kind of gave us a little mini tutorial on how to access data on EdSite. It had been a long time since we'd done that. So he walked us through that, and we looked at some trends over time, and we had some really good discussion about how to refresh the board's memory about accessing this data. So Eric is going to be kind enough to join us at our at our board retreat later this month, and will give the board kind of a brief 30 to 45-minute tutorial on how to use EdSite to access all this data so that everybody can spend time on your own looking through all this information, and we'll be prepared then for Eric to highlight some of the key takeaways from this data at our next meeting in January, or at one of the meetings in January, the second meeting, I believe. So it was a good meeting, and I don't think we'll be meeting again until the new year. Yeah. Policy.
Policy is going to meet on the 13th of December, I believe.
Personnel, we have not met. Buildings and grounds.
There's no meeting. Will we have a meeting, Charles, before?
Yeah, we have to get one on the books.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe.
I want to recommend for this that since all the other meetings are scheduled, that we go ahead and schedule a meeting every month in 2024.
Good idea.
Get it on the
That's a
calendar.
great idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Crack liaison.
Well, CREC will not meet until January. We take a break in December.
Board of Selectmen.
Nothing. Tomorrow's a regular meeting, and the last meeting was the organizational one where they decided on the liaisons and things like that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Committee on Solidarity.
Their next meeting is scheduled, looks like, for December 12th.
And Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
We have a meeting
Monday.
Monday.
All right. Thank you. Audience of citizens, do we have anyone with us in person or online who wishes to address the board at this time? Hey, you can join us at the podium.
Law, 18 Bell Court. I'll talk fast. I know the time is limited. So a couple of things. I haven't been here in a long time because I'm usually asleep by this time, and I take my sleep hygiene extremely seriously. When I don't sleep well, I get very emotional and I get very upset about little things. So sleep is very important to me. I also don't like to be in this parking lot at night. I'm very afraid for my safety in this parking lot. So that's why I haven't been here. On that note, I was here about 9 months ago, and I mentioned to you that 100 years ago, children slept 2 hours more a night. And with the suicide rates extremely high and all the other issues in society, you said that would be something you'd consider. And I was wondering if there was any progress on that. And I did some research tonight quickly, but the suicide rates are disproportionately higher among minorities. And I know we always claim to be so inclusive and, work so hard to, support diversity. Well, these negative things in society are really impacting minorities to a greater degree. So I'm imploring you again, 8 months later, to look into sleep. Look into having our high school students start school later. Having the little ones who get up early anyway, come to school earlier. I'm imploring you, like I did 8 months ago. I also implored you at that time to start foreign languages in kindergarten. In the year 2030, 21% of the population will be Latino. Those people will be in an advantage if they speak 2 languages and other students do not. Little children are sponges. They remember everything. I have a friend who's a 72-year-old retired Middletown teacher. She took 1 semester of French in 1st grade and Spanish throughout high school and in college. She remembers more French today than she does Spanish. I am imploring you, our students need to be learning a foreign language K-12. And then just a couple quick things. Our test scores for lay people, such as myself, who don't have children in the public schools, I'm not in the field of education any longer, is there any way to get our test scores in the River East so that we could compare ourselves to other districts? Because Ryan Curley on our Facebook page says that we're an award-winning school, but the last time I was here, our SPED numbers were higher than average, and the Commissioners Network wanted us to join. So for those of you who really don't know what that means, it's remediation for a district. I know it was proposed as a great big love and opportunity, but I see it as remediation. And then I don't know what PDAC means. Again, I'd like to be here, but it's kind of a little late for me. Like, I'll just give you an example. A wreath was stolen from in front of the World War I military plaque in front of the Buck Borsman building. And I didn't have a lot of sleep that night. And my first thought was, oh God, I wish I was 95. But after a good night's sleep, I thought, I wish I was 30. Because there's a lot to do. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anyone with us online who wishes to address the board this evening? Okay, thank you. All right. Board of Education member comments. Is that Dave? Meg?
I just want to say thank you to the science curriculum at the middle school. That was very impressive, and I love science, and I love the fact that kids can do the hands-on stuff. Also, we went to the CAVE convention, and there were many workshops available. The one that I facilitated and also was most interested was the Career Pathways program at the Westbrook High School, and how extensive it is when kids can pick and choose. And it's not to say that they're not going to go to college, but it's that they are also preparing to go to work at the same time. And working with over 250 employers, the high school places kids in learning situations where they actually are learning a profession, not just dabbling in CAD or one of the, like unified arts that we have at the middle school or at some of the high school. They could actually go and get a job and continue to get a college education. So that was really impressive to me.
Tim?
First, you're right, that my voting present is an abstention. So, I'll give you that one.
Thanks.
No, I appreciated the science presentation tonight. I thought it was very interesting to see. And I appreciate, Stephanie, all the work you've done to bring that budget deficit down. Looks like a more manageable number.
It sure does.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Kim?
Yeah, I loved hearing about all the engagement, hands-on learning for the students is great. I went to one of the concerts last week, amazingly talented students, and I love how engaged the staff are in all of it and invested, you can really tell. I do want to make a comment about the sleep. It's a constant conversation in my home, going to bed at 1 a.m. and up at 6 a.m. with the homework, and I have listened to stories on different news stations regarding states that are doing it, and I think that needs to be the approach. It needs to be statewide for it to work.
Yeah.
So as much as I would love for us to be able to be innovative and progressive and do all of that, I think where that work needs to happen is at the state level to get that to be functional and working for our students. So it is a challenge.
Stacy, did you have anything?
No, I have no comments tonight.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, so I want to really thanks to folks from the middle school for coming and sharing what you're doing. As a chemistry undergrad, I particularly liked hearing how you're preparing our students for life after high school, after middle school and high school. I was able to attend the CAVE convention and attended a workshop around districts telling our stories, and I thought that was really a helpful thing to hear of how we share what we're doing within our district and share the great stories of what's happening. And even sharing this example of how our middle school is approaching science curricula is wonderful to get out to a broader audience than we have right here this evening. And it also, that workshop also encouraged board members to include communication goals in our board goals. So that's something that we as a board may also want to consider of increasing communication with the community or something of that sort. method.
Thanks for that.
I do want to piggyback on what Sarah said, that there are many opportunities for us to be presenters at the CABE convention. That, just what we're doing with science standards, any number of things that we do that are really terrific. And I think that would be something we could talk about going into this spring.
That's a good point. So I was also at the CABE convention. I attended a bunch of workshops that were really excellent. While Meg attended one about the pathways, the career pathways that they were working on in Westbrook, right? Yeah. I attended one presented by East Lyme Board of Ed and Superintendent, talking about their pathways experience, their career education opportunities and internship opportunities, and they are all in. What they've developed over the last couple of years to offer their students is really incredible. I was very inspired by it, and I know you were as well. And it's a conversation that I think would be really exciting for us.
Started.
Yes, yeah. I imagine. But what was really cool was hearing how other districts have approached it, knowing that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, that there are opportunities to learn from other districts and to collaborate with districts around us who are similarly interested in this work. It was great. I also attended a workshop on strategic planning and goal setting, and there were some interesting ideas coming from other board members in that conversation as well, things to think about as we look forward. It was excellent. You mentioned the conversation about AI, and I facilitated a separate workshop that also somebody else was talking about AI. Not only the implications for classrooms and for learning, but also as a tool for increasing efficiency in your district, and as a communications tool. So
blessing and a curse at the same time.
Right. So it's interesting to start thinking about those things. It was great. So I'm just happy to share a few of those things. That's kind of what I'm thinking about coming out of the convention, and it was an excellent learning opportunity. I wanted to share, Kim, you mentioned the sleep, high school sleep thing, and I wanted to mention that based on some feedback that we'd heard in our previous meetings, I brought this up at a conversation at CABE in the resolutions committee meeting to talk about, I was questioning what's been happening statewide having to do with high school start times, and learned that this has been a conversation in the state, and that the state has created a task force to kind of look at and evaluate options for high school start times moving forward. So yes, it's not something that districts can practically implement on their own in a bubble, and the state is taking it into consideration. So there should be hopefully something coming out of that task force at some point in the future. And I think that's all.
I think the other interesting thing today, the conversation was around the kindergarten start times. And that has everybody in a tailspin right now. I think we're in a good position because we've determined that we only have a certain number of children, not 400 like Waterbury, which is gargantuan, and that we do have an evaluation, an idea for evaluation, which is going to be critical. One of the interesting conversations that came up today was that the legislature could have said, we're implementing this over a 4-year period. December, you can't come to school in September, and let the rest of the kids come in, and then move it back until you've got everybody coming in on September the 1st.
To do a phase-in.
Phasing it in. But they didn't do that, and then they applied the waiver and said to superintendents, you could be in charge of the waiver. So let's start off on the wrong foot with parents and put you in a very uncomfortable situation.
The policy committee will continue to discuss that, and we anticipate that'll be a board conversation in January. All right.
That's it.
On that note, we do not have an executive session this evening. If there is a motion to adjourn, I would be happy to entertain it.
I'll make it.
Is there a second? Oh, Tim or Dave, you can fight it out. All in favor? Aye. All right. I hope everyone has a good night.
Happy holidays. See you next year.
Well, no, we'll see you. See you in a couple weeks. For our
retreat. Yes, yeah. No, we'll see. Okay.
Feel better,
Word is
Jared.
it.